3 weeks before the courtroom disaster, humid Atlanta air clung to the cramped living room of the Jackson family's modest brick house on Peach Street. Kaleb Jackson, 18, hunched over a flickering laptop screen, his wiry frame taut, with focus as lines of code scrolled past his sharp brown eyes. His twin sister Kiara perched on a sagging couch nearby, her slender fingers flipping through a notebook, thick with scribbled testimonies, her braided hair swaying as she muttered under her breath. The twins, seniors at Carver High, had stumbled onto something big, a predatory loan scheme bleeding their mostly black neighborhood dry. Payday lenders with fake smiles had been luring folks into contracts with interest rates so steep they'd drown families in debt for generations. Kaleb's jaw tightened as he remembered Miss Ella from down the block, her arthritis-racked hands trembling as she signed away her last savings. Kiara's voice had cracked when she interviewed old Mr. Tatum, who'd lost his barbershop after 40 years because of those vultures. This wasn't just wrong. It was personal. Kaleb, a tech whiz who'd built his first computer at 12, had cracked into the lender's shoddy website 2 nights ago after Kiara begged him to dig deeper. His fingers flew across the keys now, bypassing weak firewalls, pulling up spreadsheets of names, dates, and dollar amounts that made his stomach churn. Hundreds of families, all black, targeted with precision. He glanced at Kiara, her brow furrowed as she cross-checked her notes against his findings. She'd spent weeks knocking on doors, coaxing scared neighbors to spill their stories, her soft voice and earnest eyes earning their trust. Together, they'd pieced it all together. Elite Cash Loans wasn't just greedy. It was a machine built to exploit people who looked like them. Kaleb saved the data to a thumb drive, his pulse racing. Kiara snapped her notebook shut, determination lighting her face. They weren't just kids, they were fighters. The next morning, they marched into the Atlanta Police Department's Precinct 7, a squat gray building buzzing with ringing phones and clacking keyboards. Kaleb clutched the thumb drive, Kiara cradling her notebook like a shield. They dressed sharp, Kaleb in a pressed button-up, Kiara in a navy blazer, hoping to look like the honor students they were. The desk sergeant, a bored woman with chipped nail polish, barely glanced up as they explained their mission. She waved them to a back office where Officer Trent Holloway waited, his bulk filling the doorway. 6 feet of muscle and menace, Holloway's pale blue eyes narrowed as he sized them up, his buzz cut glinting under fluorescent lights. Kaleb squared his shoulders, launching into their pitch about the scam, the evidence, the victims. Kiara chimed in, her voice steady as she listed names and dates, her notebook open to prove every word. Holloway didn't flinch. He leaned back, in his creaky chair, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at his thick lips. "So you two think you're detectives now?" His tone dripped with condescension, like they were kids playing dress-up. Kaleb bristled, but Kiara pressed on, sliding the thumb drive across the desk. "This proves Elite Cash is breaking the law. We've got records, testimonies, people are losing everything." Holloway picked up the drive, twirling it between meaty fingers, then tossed it back like it was trash. "Hacking, huh? Sounds illegal to me, and these sob stories? Probably made up by folks too lazy to pay their bills." Kaleb's hands balled into fists, nails digging into his palms. "We didn't hack for fun. We did it to help people," he snapped, voice low and tight. Holloway stood towering over them, his shadow swallowing the room. "You don't get it, do you? I've seen your type before. Stirring up trouble, crying victim when it backfires. I'll pass this along, but don't expect a parade." His smirk widened as he scribbled a note, dismissing them with a flick of his wrist. Kiara grabbed Kaleb's arm, pulling him out before he could swing. Outside, the spring sun blazed, but a chill settled in their bones. "He's lying," Kaleb growled, kicking a pebble across the asphalt. "He'll bury it." Kiara nodded, her eyes hard. "Then we take it higher, straight to court." They didn't know Holloway had already dialed Judge Victor Ramsey, a man he'd swapped favors with for years, planting a seed of doubt. "Got some black kids claiming they're heroes," Holloway had said, chuckling. "More like scammers looking for a payout." Back home, the twins spent days prepping. Kaleb cleaned up the data, making it airtight while Kiara typed a report, her words sharp and clear, a weapon forged from pain. Their dad, Leonard Jackson, Chief Justice of Georgia's Supreme Court, had taught them to trust the system, even when it failed folks like them. He was away on a case in Savannah, but they texted him blurry pics of their work, grinning as he replied, "Proud of you. Be careful." They didn't tell him everything, not wanting to worry him. By the time they filed their evidence with the Fulton County Courthouse, they were buzzing with hope. Carver High buzzed too. Classmates slapped their backs, teachers beamed. The twins had perfect GPAs, led the coding club and newspaper, and volunteered at the food bank. This was their moment. The court date came fast. March 25th, 2025, a Tuesday thick with pollen and promise. Kaleb wore his best tie, a red one Mom had ironed, while Kiara chose a crisp white blouse, her scholarship medal pinned proudly to her chest. They strode into the towering courthouse, a maze of marble and echoes, clutching their proof. The gallery was half full, mostly curious locals and a few reporters sniffing a story. Judge Victor Ramsey loomed on the bench, 62, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from years of wielding power. His grey eyes flicked over the twins, lingering too long, a sneer curling his thin lips. Kaleb whispered to Kiara, "He looks pissed already." She squeezed his hand. "We've got this." Their lawyer, a wiry public defender named Ms. Patel, laid out the case. Elite cash loans defrauded hundreds, and the twins had proof. Kaleb testified first, voice steady as he walked the judge through the data, pointing to screen grabs projected on a shaky old monitor. Kiara followed, her words painting vivid pictures of neighbors' tears, lost homes, broken lives. The room leaned in, hushed as she finished. "We just want justice for them." Ms. Patel rested their case, confident. The twins exchanged a look, hearts pounding with anticipation. They'd done it, exposed the truth. Surely Ramsey would see, but Ramsey didn't budge. He leaned forward, elbows on the bench, his gavel resting like a loaded gun. "Interesting tale," he drawled, voice rough as gravel. "But I've got a report here from Officer Holloway. Says you two fabricated this evidence, hacked illegally, maybe even ran the scam yourselves." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Kaleb's mouth dropped open. Kiara's eyes widened. "That's a lie," Kaleb shouted, rising. Ms. Patel yanked him down, hissing, "Quiet." Ramsey's sneer deepened. "Contemptuous little punks. I've seen your kind before." Thinking, "You're above the law because you've got big dreams." Kiara's hands shook as she gripped her notebook, whispering, "He's twisting it." Holloway slouched in the back, arms crossed, his smug grin a silent taunt. Ramsey flipped through Holloway's flimsy report, ignoring the thumb drive, the testimonies, the screen grabs. "I'm not here to play hero to a couple of kids who think they're slick," he said, voice booming. 30 days in Juvenile. Detention. Fraud and contempt. Next case." The gavel slammed, a thunderclap that shattered their world. Kaleb lunged forward. "You can't do this!" But bailiffs grabbed him, wrenching his arms back. Kiara stumbled, her medal clattering to the floor as they dragged her too. The gallery erupted, some jeering, others stunned. In the shadows, Leonard Jackson slipped in late, his briefcase slipping from his hand as he saw his kids cuffed. Ramsey's smirk burning into his brain. The twins' heads spun as they were hauled out, the cool marble hallway a blur. Kaleb's tie twisted around his neck, choking him with every step. Kiara's blouse wrinkled, her pride stomped under heavy boots. They'd walked in as saviors, expecting medals, maybe a headline, "Teens bust loan sharks." Instead, Holloway's lie had turned their truth into a crime, and Ramsey swallowed it whole. Why? Because they were black? Because they dared to fight? The question gnawed at them as steel cuffs bit their wrists. They didn't see Leonard, didn't know he'd heard it all, his rage simmering in silence. Outside, Atlanta buzzed on, oblivious, while the twins' dreams teetered on a knife's edge, their faith in justice cracking like thin glass. The patrol car's engine growled as it peeled away from the Fulton County Courthouse, its tires screeching against the asphalt like a predator claiming its prey. Kaleb Jackson sat rigid in the back seat, his wrists chafing under cold steel cuffs. The red tie his mom had ironed, now a tangled noose around his neck. Beside him, Kiara clutched her crumpled blouse, her scholarship medal lost somewhere on the courtroom floor, her braids swaying as the car jolted over potholes. What had just happened? How could a judge turn their truth into a 30-day sentence? The twins' minds reeled, replaying Judge Victor Ramsey's sneer, his gravelly voice branding them frauds. They'd walked in with evidence to save their neighborhood, but now they were the ones in chains. Was this justice or something uglier? Officer Trent Holloway manned the wheel, his beefy frame filling the driver's seat, his buzz cut catching. Glints of red and blue from the flashing lights. He glanced back through the rear-view mirror, his pale eyes glinting with malice. "Thought you'd get a medal, huh?" he sneered, voice thick with mockery. "Just another pair of street rats, trying to scam your way up. Atlanta don't need your kind." Kaleb's fists clenched, the cuffs biting deeper, his pulse hammering in his ears. "We didn't scam anyone. You lied," he spat, voice trembling with fury. Holloway chuckled, a low rumble that shook the car. "Keep talking, boy. Makes my day sweeter." Kiara's stomach twisted. Was this cop really enjoying their pain? She stared out the smudged window, Atlanta's skyline blurring past, wondering how their fight for good had landed them here. The ride to the juvenile detention center took 20 agonizing minutes, every bump jarring their bruised pride. Holloway kept up his taunts, each word a fresh cut. "Bet you think you're too good for this with your fancy school and big dreams? Newsflash, nobody cares about kids like you." Kiara's nails dug into her palms, her breath shallow. How could he judge them without knowing them? Kaleb glared at the back of Holloway's head, imagining smashing through that smug grin. But Kiara's soft whisper stopped him. "Don't. Dad'll fix this." Her faith in their father, Chief Justice Leonard Jackson, was a thin lifeline, but it held Kaleb back. Could Leonard really undo this nightmare? The detention center loomed ahead, a squat concrete fortress ringed with razor wire, its gray walls swallowing the late March sunlight. Holloway yanked the twins out, his meaty hands gripping their arms too tight, shoving them toward the entrance. Inside, the air stank of bleach and despair, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. Two guards, one lanky with a patchy beard, the other stout with a shaved scalp, waited at intake. "Fresh meat," the lanky one grunted, snatching Kaleb's tie and tossing it into a bin. "Strip," the stout one barked, his voice flat. Kiara's eyes widened, her body stiffening. "What?" she whispered, but the lanky guard grabbed her blazer, ripping it off. "You heard him. Move." The strip search was a violation wrapped in routine. Kaleb stood shivering in his boxers, the guards pouring through his clothes, tossing his wallet and phone into a plastic bag. "Nice tie, rich boy," the stout one mocked, holding up the crumpled red fabric before chucking it aside. Across the room, Kiara hugged herself as the lanky guard dangled her scholarship medal, its gold ribbon glinting mockingly. "Bet you stole this too," he sneered, dropping it into the bag with a clink. Her throat tightened, tears burning, but she swallowed them. Why did they assume the worst? The guards' laughter echoed as they handed over scratchy orange jumpsuits, the fabric rough against their skin. Kaleb pulled his on, fists trembling. Were they criminals now just because Ramsey said so? Processed and shoved into a holding area, the twins slumped on a metal bench, the cold seeping through their thin uniforms. The room was a cage, bars thick and unyielding. Other kids sprawled on bunks, their eyes dull with resignation. Kaleb's mind raced, replaying Holloway's lies, Ramsey's gavel. "This can't stick," he muttered, voice hoarse. Kiara nodded, clinging to hope. "Dad's probably on his way. He'll sue them all." But doubt gnawed at her. What if the system didn't care about truth? Hours dragged, the clock ticking past 6, then 7. No call, no release. Then the TV bolted to the wall flickered on, a local news anchor's voice cutting through the silence. "Breaking news from Carver High," the anchor said, her tone clipped. "Twins Kaleb and Kiara Jackson, once celebrated for their grades, have been suspended after a fraud conviction. School officials cite criminal behavior unfit for our community." The screen flashed their yearbook photos, Kaleb's shy grin, Kiara's poised smile, now stamped with shame. Gasps rippled. Through the room, other detainees snickering. "I guess you ain't so smart." A kid with a buzz cut jeered, tossing a balled-up sock at Kaleb. Kiara's heart sank, her college dreams, Spellman, Howard, slipping away. They didn't even ask us, she whispered, voice breaking. Kaleb punched the bench, the sting sharp. How could their school turn so fast? The news wasn't done, the anchor's face hardened. And this just in. A leaked video allegedly shows the twins confessing to running the scam they claimed to expose. The grainy footage rolled, Kaleb's voice distorted, saying, "We tricked 'em good," while Kiara's laugh echoed, fake and hollow. The room erupted, kids hooting, guards smirking. "That's not us," Kaleb roared, lunging at the TV. But a guard shoved him back, his baton raised. "Sit down, liar." Kiara grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with panic. "It's doctored. Holloway did this." But who'd believe them now? The video spread like wildfire, phones buzzing as detainees texted friends. Their names were mud, their heroism a punchline. Kaleb slumped, his breath ragged, the orange jumpsuit itching his skin. "They're burying us," he said, voice flat. Kiara stared at the bars, her mind spinning. Had Holloway planned this all along? The video was a masterstroke, flipping their story into a lie so convincing even their neighbors might doubt them. She pictured Miss Ella shaking her head, Mr. Tatum cursing their names. "We're still us," she murmured, gripping Kaleb's hand. "They can't take that." But the weight of public scorn pressed down, heavier than the cuffs. Their futures, law school for him, journalism for her, teetered on a cliff's edge, college offers evaporating with every share of that cursed clip. Time crawled, the night stretching endless. Kaleb traced cracks in the concrete floor, each one a scar on their pride. Kiara hugged her knees, replaying their courtroom defeat. Why had Ramsey bought Holloway's garbage? Was it their skin, their youth, their nerve to fight back? The questions churned, unanswered. Outside, Atlanta slept, oblivious to the twins' fall. In the courthouse shadows, Leonard Jackson had seen it all, his rage a coiled spring. But they didn't know. 3 days in, this hell loomed ahead, and now the world saw them as villains. Could they climb out of this pit, or had Ramsey's gavel sealed their fate? What do you think about Holloway's dirty tricks? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think he's the real crook here, and smash that like button if you're rooting for Kaleb and Kiara to fight back. Subscribe now, because tomorrow's twist will flip everything you thought you knew. How far will Holloway go to crush these twins? Stick around to find out. The Juvenile detention center's steel doors groaned open on the 3rd morning, spilling Kaleb and Kiara Jackson into a grey Atlanta dawn thick with exhaust fumes. Their orange jumpsuits hung loose, stained with sweat and shame, as Chief Justice Leonard Jackson stormed toward them, his navy suit pristine but his face a mask of fury. His 6-foot frame towered over the guards, who shrank back, clutching clipboards like shields. Kaleb's knees wobbled, relief crashing through him at the sight of his dad, while Kiara's cracked lips parted in a shaky smile, her braids limp against her shoulders. 3 days of cold benches, stale bread, and Holloway's leaked video had hollowed them out, but Leonard's presence promised salvation. Could he really pull them from this abyss? Leonard thrust a stack of legal papers at the desk sergeant, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the lobby. "Release my children." "Now this is a writ of habeas corpus, signed by Judge Ellis. You've got no grounds to hold them." The sergeant, a wiry man with a nervous tic, skimmed the documents, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Ah, yes, sir," he stammered, waving the guards off. Kaleb rubbed his wrists, raw from cuffs, as Kiara grabbed her confiscated blazer, its torn sleeve a silent accusation. The guards avoided Leonard's gaze, their bravado gone, replaced by the skittish shuffle of men outranked. Outside, the twins piled into Leonard's black SUV, its leather seats a stark contrast to the detention's hard plastic. "You're safe now," Leonard said, his deep voice steady, but his knuckles white on the wheel. Was it really over? Tasty-o. Drive home was silent. Atlanta's skyline a blur of glass and steel against a pale sky. Kaleb stared out the window, replaying Ramsey's sneer, Holloway's taunts, the fake video that turned their school against them. Kiara hugged her arms, the weight of lost college dreams pressing her chest. Leonard broke the quiet as they pulled into their Peach Street driveway, the brick house still standing despite the chaos. "I saw it all," he said, cutting the engine. "Ramsey's ruling, Holloway's lies. I was in the back, stuck in traffic from Savannah. I'm suing them. Both. Defamation, misconduct, the works. They won't bury you. Kaleb's eyes widened, a spark igniting in his chest. Could Dad's power really crush Ramsey? Inside, the living room smelled of lemon polish, a faint comfort against the storm. Leonard paced, his polished shoes clicking, on hardwood laying out his plan. Ramsey's a relic, thinks he's untouchable. Holloway's his lapdog. I've got colleagues pulling records, building a case. You're not frauds, you're heroes. Kiara's shoulders straightened, her faith in her dad swelling. We've got more evidence, she said, voice firm despite her exhaustion. Kaleb nodded, adrenaline kicking in. I can dig deeper. Holloway's dirty, I'll prove it. Leonard's stern face softened, pride flickering in his dark eyes. Good. Let's hit back. The twins exchanged a look, their spirits lifting. Were they really clawing their way up? Kaleb retreated to his bedroom, a cramped space cluttered with tech gear, his salvaged laptop humming to life. 3 days in detention hadn't dulled his edge. He cracked his knuckles, diving back into Elite Cash Loan's digital underbelly, tracing IP addresses and bank transfers. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he uncovered a thread. Holloway's name on a payment log, $50,000 from the loan shark's account, dated a year ago. Got you, he muttered, saving the file. Downstairs, Kiara sat at the kitchen table, her notebook open, pen flying across fresh pages. She dialed Juvenile, a junior editor at the Atlanta Voice, a black-owned paper with a fierce rep. Juvenile, it's Kiara Jackson. We've got a story. The twins who took down a scam, framed by a cop and judge. Exclusive. Her voice trembled, with urgency, but she pushed through. Jamal's gravelly laugh crackled through the phone. Heard about your court mess. You sure you're legit? Kiara's grip tightened. Check the thumb drive I'm sending. Data, testimonies, and now, proof. Holloway's on the take. This isn't just our story. It's our people's. Jamal paused, then grunted approval. Send it. If it holds, we run it tomorrow. Kiara hung up, her pulse racing, and overnighted the package from a corner mailbox, the spring breeze cool against her clammy skin. By noon the next day, the Atlanta Voice hit newsstands and screens. Teens expose loan shark conspiracy, betrayed by judge and cop. Kiara's words painted their fight in bold strokes, Kaleb's data the backbone, Holloway's payout the smoking gun. The story exploded online, retweets flooding their cracked phones with support. Had they turned the tide? Carver High's hallways buzzed that afternoon, classmates crowding Kaleb and Kiara with fist bumps and apologies. We knew you weren't crooks, a girl with pink braids said, her eyes guilty. Teachers nodded, reinstatement whispers floating. Kaleb grinned, his red tie back on, straighter now. Kiara pinned her medal to her blazer, its shine restored. At home, Leonard cracked a rare smile over dinner, roasted chicken steaming on the table. Public pressures mounting, Ramsey squirming. We'll clear your names, get you back. To college apps. The twins clinked water glasses, the sound crisp and hopeful. Kaleb pictured MIT. Kiara saw Spellman's gates. Were they finally free? The celebration lasted until dusk, the sky bruising purple over Peach Street. Then the phone rang, shrill and insistent. Leonard answered, his face hardening as a clerk's voice crackled through. Chief Justice, Judge Ramsey's issued a gag. Order. Claims the Voice article's defamatory, says the twins are slandering him and Holloway. Court date set for next week. Leonard slammed the receiver down, wood splintering under his fist. Kaleb's fork clattered to his plate. Kiara's glass trembled in her hand. He's fighting back? Kaleb asked, voice tight. Leonard nodded, jaw clenched. He's scared, but he's got pull. This isn't over. Kiara's stomach dropped, the article's triumph souring. Had their victory just painted a bigger target? The living room grew heavy, shadows stretching across the walls. Kaleb paced, his sneakers scuffing the floor, mind racing to the next. Hack. I'll find more, bury him. Kiara scribbled notes, her pen shaking. We'll counter it. Prove the gag's a sham. Leonard sank into an armchair, rubbing his temples. He's betting on silence, we won't give it to him. The twins nodded, resolve hardening despite the dread. 3 days free, and Ramsey's claws were back, sharper now. The article had lit a fire, but the judge was dousing it with power. They couldn't match. Yet, could they outsmart him again? Or was this the edge of a deeper fall? Atlanta hummed outside, oblivious to the Jacksons' war. Neighbors waved from porches, unaware the twins' brief shine was dimming. Kaleb's laptop glowed upstairs. Kiara's notebook sprawled open, their fight reigniting. Leonard's legal papers piled high, a fortress against Ramsey's strike. They'd tasted hope, fragile and fleeting, only to see it snatched away. Holloway's smirk lingered in their minds, Ramsey's gavel a phantom echo. The gag order wasn't just a hurdle. It was a warning. The system didn't bend for kids like them, not without a cost, but they weren't done. Were they strong enough to push back harder? The Jackson family's Peach Street home trembled under a pre-dawn assault, 5 days after the Atlanta Voice article hit, its ink barely dry before Judge Victor Ramsey struck back. Sirens wailed as Officer Trent Holloway's squad car screeched to a halt outside, floodlights slicing through the curtains like knives. Kaleb bolted upright in bed, his heart slamming against his ribs, the glow of his laptop still flickering from late-night hacking. Kiara stumbled into the hall, her braids wild, clutching her phone as pounding fists rattled the front door. What had Ramsey done now? Chief Justice Leonard Jackson met them at the stairs, his face carved from stone, bathrobe tied tight over his broad frame. "Stay calm," he ordered, voice steady but eyes blazing. Was this the gag order's teeth bearing down? The door burst open, wood splintering as Holloway stormed in, badge gleaming on his barrel chest, flanked by 3 uniformed cops with buzz cuts and grimaces. "Search warrant," he barked, shoving a crumpled paper at Leonard, his thick lips curling into a sneer. "Contempt of court and cyber-terrorism. Your brats crossed the line." Kaleb's stomach lurched, his mind racing to the thumb drive. Upstairs. Cyber-terrorism? Kiara gripped the banister, her breath shallow. "That's insane," she snapped, voice cracking. Holloway's pale eyes locked on her, glinting with malice. "Tell it to the judge, princess." The cops fanned out, boots stomping, drawers crashing open. Could Ramsey really twist their fight into this? Holloway zeroed in on Kiara's room, his meaty hands ripping through her desk, tossing her journals to the floor like trash. Pages of victim testimonies fluttered, trampled under his muddy soles, ink smearing into ruin. "What's this garbage?" he grunted, kicking a notebook against the wall, its spine cracking. Kiara lunged forward. "Those are evidence!" But a cop blocked her, his arm a steel bar across her chest. Downstairs, Kaleb watched another officer smash his laptop with a baton, plastic shards flying, the screen shattering into a spiderweb of black. "No!" Kaleb roared, shoving past, only to catch a fist in his gut, doubling him over. Leonard's shout cut through. "You're destroying property!" But Holloway smirked, pulling a baggie of white powder from his pocket, dangling it like a trophy. "Found this in the kid's desk. Drugs too, huh?" Was this a setup? Leonard's fists clenched, veins bulging on his forearms. "That's planted. You're framing them." Holloway chuckled, a low rumble that shook the room. "Prove it, big man." The cops bagged the powder, Kiara's journals, Kaleb's, broken tech, piling it into evidence boxes with deliberate slowness. Kaleb wheezed, clutching his stomach, fury boiling as Holloway's lie took root. Kiara's eyes burned, tears held back by sheer will. The warrant cited Ramsey's gag order violation, claiming the article was slander, and Kaleb's hacking, now cyber-terrorism, threatened public safety. 5 years in prison loomed, a sledgehammer to their futures. How could their truth become this twisted? By sunrise, the house was a war zone, furniture upended, family photos cracked on the floor. Holloway cuffed the twins again, the steel colder than before, dragging them to the SUV as neighbors peeked from porches, whispering. Leonard followed, barking into his phone. "Ellis, file an emergency injunction. This is retaliation." But the line crackled, his judicial allies stalling, voices hesitant. "Ramsey's got the circuit locked down," a clerk muttered. "Your lawsuit's frozen." Leonard's jaw tightened, the phone slipping in his grip. Was Ramsey's reach this deep? The twins sat in the back seat, house arrest anklets snapping onto their legs, the beep a countdown to their next trial. Freedom had lasted 3 days. Atlanta woke to the news. Headlines screaming, Jackson twins face new charges, drugs, cybercrime. The Atlanta Voice's triumph faded, replaced by grainy shots of Kaleb and Kiara in cuffs. Holloway's baggie waved like proof. Social media flipped, supporters vanishing, replaced by trolls calling them spoiled thugs hiding behind daddy. Kaleb scrolled on his cracked phone, each comment a punch. They're saying we're liars, he growled, tossing it aside. Kiara stared at the anklet, its red light mocking her. Jamal's pulling the story, says Ramsey threatened the paper. Her voice broke, hope draining. Had their fight just fueled Ramsey's fire? The living room became their prison, windows shuttered against prying eyes. Leonard paced, legal pads sprawling across the coffee table, his pen scratching furiously. I'll appeal the warrant, expose the plant. Holloway's sloppy. We'll catch him. But his voice wavered, doubt creeping in. Kaleb slumped on the couch, his tech dreams, MIT, coding startups, slipping through his fingers. Kiara sat cross-legged, her journalism aspirations, Spellman, breaking stories, fading, with each beep of the anklet. They're winning, she whispered, hugging her knees. Leonard knelt, gripping their shoulders. Not yet, we've got time. But the clock ticked louder, a new trial in 7 days. Could they fight a system this rigged? Holloway didn't stop. Midweek he leaked photos to the press. The baggie, Kiara's trashed journals, Kaleb's shattered laptop, captioned, evidence of guilt. The public ate it up. Protests outside Carver High demanding the twins' expulsion. Signs reading, no criminals here. College recruiters called, voices cold. We're rescinding your applications, character concerns. Kaleb punched the wall, plaster crumbling, his knuckles bleeding. Kiara's medal, retrieved from detention, sat dull on the table, a relic of lost pride. They're erasing us, she said, voice hollow. Leonard's lawsuit hit a brick wall, Ramsey's cronies burying motions in red tape. Was this the end of their fight? The kitchen light buzzed late that night, Leonard poring over case law, bags under his eyes. Kaleb joined him, dragging a chair, his voice low. I've got backups. Holloway's payout file. We can use it. Kiara shuffled in, her blazer wrinkled, clutching a burner phone. I've got contacts, victims who'll talk off record. Leonard looked up, exhaustion warring with resolve. Risky. Ramsey's watching. But the twins nodded, fire rekindling. They'd tasted victory with the article, only to see Ramsey slam it down with charges 10 times worse. 5 years in prison loomed, a shadow darker than detention. Could they dig deeper without sinking further? Outside, Atlanta's spring rain pattered, washing the city clean while the Jacksons stewed in filth. Neighbors turned away, once friendly waves replaced by cold stares. The anklets beeped, a constant reminder of Ramsey's grip. Holloway's raid wasn't just a search, it was a message. Cross me, and I'll crush you. Leonard's power, once. A shield bent under Ramsey's influence, his lawsuit a paper tiger. Kaleb's bleeding knuckles throbbed, Kiara's burner phone trembled in her hand. They'd fought for their people, only to be branded villains. Their brief freedom a cruel tease. Was Ramsey untouchable, or was there a crack they could pry open? Do you believe Holloway's gone too far with this frame-up? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think he deserves to face justice, and hit that like button if you're cheering for Kaleb and Kiara to turn this around. Subscribe now, because tomorrow's chapter will blow the lid off this fight. What's Ramsey hiding that's worth all this revenge? You'll want to see what's next. The Jackson family's kitchen glowed dimly under a single bulb, the clock striking 2 in the morning, as Kaleb hunched over a scavenged tablet, its cracked screen casting jagged shadows across his bruised face. His anklet beeped faintly, a mocking pulse against the silence, but his fingers danced over the keys, piecing together a makeshift rig from spare parts salvaged before Holloway's raid. Kiara sat across the table, her burner phone pressed to her ear, whispering to scared voices on the other end, her blazer sleeves rolled up over trembling arms. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson slumped in a chair nearby, his suit jacket crumpled, legal pads strewn like fallen soldiers. 5 days into house arrest, with a trial looming that could lock the twins away for 5 years, they were cornered. Could they claw their way out of Ramsey's trap? Kaleb's bloodshot eyes narrowed as he dug into Elite Cash Loan's digital guts, his backups from before the raid a lifeline. He'd lost his laptop, but not his edge. Lines of code blurred past, his breath hitching as he traced a financial thread. Judge Victor Ramsey's name buried in a slush fund. $200,000 funneled through a shell company tied to the loan shark. "Jackpot," he hissed, voice raw, saving the file to a hidden cloud drive. Was Ramsey dirty too? The discovery hit like lightning, proof the judge wasn't just biased, he was in bed with the enemy. Kiara glanced up, her call ending, a flicker of hope in her tired eyes. "What did you find?" she asked, leaning closer. Her braids brushing the table. "Ramsey's on their payroll," Kaleb said, turning the tablet to show her. "Dates match Holloway's payout. They're a team." Kiara's jaw tightened, her mind racing. She'd spent hours coaxing Elite Cash victims, Miss Ella, Mr. Tatum, others, into secret talks recording their pain on the burner's shaky audio. "They took my savings," Miss Ella had sobbed, her voice crackling through static. "Threatened. My grandkids if I talked." Kiara saved each file, her hands steady despite the anklet's weight. "We've got enough," she said, voice firm. "Testimony's your data. We bypass Ramsey's gag." Leonard stirred, rubbing his stubbled chin. "Risky. They'll hit harder." But the twins nodded, resolve hardening. Could they turn the tables? The plan was reckless, born of desperation. Kiara dialed a contact at WSB-TV, Atlanta's biggest news station, her pitch sharp and urgent. "This is Kiara Jackson. We've got proof Judge Ramsey and Officer Holloway are corrupt, protecting a loan shark that's destroying black families. Exclusive, national level. You in?" The producer, a gruff woman named Carla, paused, then bit. "Send it. If it checks out, we air tonight." Kaleb encrypted the files, Ramsey's slush fund victim audio, uploading them via a VPN to dodge the anklet's tracking. By 8 that evening, the broadcast hit, Carla's voice booming. "Explosive evidence tonight. Judge Victor Ramsey. Linked to a predatory loan scheme, twins Kaleb and Kiara Jackson framed to silence them." The screen flashed Kaleb's data, Miss Ella's tearful voice echoing nationwide. Had they just cracked Ramsey's armor? Atlanta erupted, phones buzzing, streets humming as the story spread. The twins watched from their shuttered living room, the TV's glow painting their faces in flickering blue. Leonard stood behind them, arms crossed, his breath held. The anchor cut to a legal expert, a wiry man with glasses, who gasped, "If." "This holds Ramsey's done." Carver High classmates texted apologies, neighbors banged on doors with support. Kaleb grinned, his knuckles still scabbed from punching the wall. "We got him," he said, voice lifting. Kiara hugged her knees, her medal back on the table gleaming faintly. "Maybe," she murmured, cautious. The next morning, a new judge, Evelyn Carter, no relation, took their case, dropping the contempt and cyber-terrorism charges, citing tainted evidence. Ramsey recused himself under pressure, his sneer absent from the bench. Were they finally winning? Released from house arrest, the twins stepped outside, the spring air sharp with pollen and promise. Leonard drove them to a diner, the first outing in days, ordering pancakes stacked high with syrup. "You two are unstoppable," he said, his deep voice warm, a rare smile breaking through. Kaleb shoveled food, his appetite roaring back, picturing MIT's labs. Kiara sipped coffee, Spellman's gate shimmering in her mind. The anklets were gone, the trial cancelled, Holloway's baggie dismissed as a plant. They clinked mugs, laughter bubbling up, a fragile joy after weeks of hell. "We're pack," Kaleb said, syrup dripping down his chin. Kiara nodded, her braids swaying. "For now." Could this victory stick? The celebration lasted hours, the diner's jukebox humming old soul tunes, the twins plotting their next moves. Kaleb wanted to rebuild his rig, Kiara to pitch more stories. Leonard leaned back, pride swelling in his chest, his lawsuit against Ramsey and Holloway thawing as allies rallied. But dusk brought a chill, the SUV's radio crackling with breaking news as they drove home. Judge Victor Ramsey, though recused, has filed a misconduct claim against Chief Justice Leonard Jackson, the anchor said, voice tight, alleging Leonard abused his position to shield his children, freezing his bank accounts pending investigation. Leonard slammed the brakes, tires squealing, the car lurching on Peach Street. Kaleb's mug crashed to the floor. Kiara's breath caught. Had Ramsey just turned their win into a new war? The living room darkened as they piled inside, the radio's echo lingering. Leonard checked his phone, his face ashen. Accounts are locked, all of them. Savings, checking, everything. His voice trembled, a crack in his unshakable facade. Kaleb kicked the couch, his scabbed knuckles splitting open again. "He's hitting us where it hurts," he growled, blood trickling down his hand. Kiara stared at the TV, now off, her reflection distorted in the black screen. "He's not done," she whispered, dread pooling in her gut. Ramsey's move was surgical, stripping their financial lifeline, a judge's power wielded like a blade. 5 years in prison was off the table, but poverty loomed, a slower death. Could he really choke them out like this? Leonard sank into his armchair, hands gripping the armrests, his legal mind racing. "He's bluffing, trying to scare us silent. I'll fight it." But his allies were quiet, phones unanswered, the judicial circle tightening around Ramsey's pull. Kaleb paced, his tablet clutched like a weapon, mind spinning to counterhack. Kiara grabbed her burner, texting Carla a WSB. "Ramsey's freezing Dad's money. Story update?" Carla's reply was swift. "Working it. Stay low." The twins exchanged a look, their brief triumph souring fast. The diner's warmth faded, replaced by a cold reality. Ramsey wasn't bowing out. He was escalating, his claws digging deeper. Had their exposé just painted a bigger bullseye? Outside, Atlanta's night pulsed, oblivious to the Jacksons' unraveling. The brick house stood silent, its windows dark, neighbors asleep while the twins' world tilted again. Kaleb's tablet glowed, his fingers itching to strike back. Ramsey's slush fund a taunt he couldn't unsee. Kiara's burner buzzed, victim voices a chorus she couldn't abandon. Leonard's legal pads mocked, him his power neutered by a frozen bank. They'd forced Ramsey off their case, tasted freedom, only to see him lash out with a vengeance colder than cuffs. The trial was gone, but the fight roared on, fiercer now. Could they survive this new blow, or was Ramsey's next move already closing in? The foreclosure notice slapped onto the Jackson family's Peach Street door 3 days after Ramsey froze their accounts, its bold red letters screaming 30 days to vacate like a death sentence. Kaleb ripped it down, his scabbed knuckles cracking open again, blood smearing the paper as he stormed inside, the brick house already hollowed out by dread. Kiara stood frozen in the living room, her braids limp against her shoulders, staring at the empty spots where furniture once sat, sold off to scrape by. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson slumped on the last couch, his navy suit wrinkled, phone silent. As his bank cards turned to useless plastic, how could Ramsey's revenge strip their home so fast? The loan shark's shadow loomed, a silent partner in this orchestrated ruin. The freeze had hit like a tidal wave, locking every penny. Savings, Leonard's salary, even the twins' college fund, under Ramsey's misconduct claim. Bills piled up, utilities flickered, and the mortgage defaulted overnight. Kaleb kicked an empty moving box, its thud echoing through the bare space. "He's not just a judge, he's a damn puppet master," he growled, voice thick with rage. Kiara clutched her burner phone, its battery low, her last link to the fight. "Elite Cash pushed this. They're his muscle," she said, piecing it together. Leonard nodded, his jaw tight, eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. "They've got friends in the bank. Foreclosure's their payback." Was the system this ruthless, bending to crush them completely? 2 days later, Atlanta's noon sun blazed as Holloway's squad car roared up again, this time with handcuffs for Leonard. "Bribery!" Holloway barked, slamming a warrant on the hood, his buzz cut glinting with sweat. "You paid off Judge Ellis to spring your brats. Leonard's fists clenched, his voice a low roar. "That's a lie, and you know it." But the cuffs snapped on, cold steel biting his wrists, cameras flashing as reporters swarmed, live TV beaming his perp walk across the city. Kaleb lunged. "Let him go." But a cop's elbow cracked his ribs, dropping him to the grass. Kiara screamed, her burner tumbling, recording the chaos as Holloway smirked, dragging Leonard away. Could they sink any lower? The news hit like a bomb. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson arrested, twins' father in corruption scandal. The screen looped Leonard in cuffs. Holloway's baggie from the raid waved as proof of a payoff, a narrative spun to shred his name. Kaleb cradled his bruised side, sprawled on the lawn, watching neighbors gawk, their once warm nods replaced by cold suspicion. Kiara snatched her phone, hands shaking, the video shaky but clear. "This is a setup," she whispered, uploading it to a backup cloud, her last shred of defiance. Inside, the house echoed, its walls bare, the foreclosure clock ticking louder. How could Ramsey turn their dad into the villain? With Leonard jailed, the twins scrambled to a motel off Interstate 85, a dingy box with peeling paint and a buzzing neon sign. They pooled their last $40, cash from Kiara's piggy bank for a night, the clerk's sneer cutting as he handed over a rusted key. The room stank of mildew, beds sagging under stained sheets, roaches skittering in the corners. Kaleb slumped on the mattress, his tablet dead, no charger, no fight left. Kiara paced, her blazer torn, dialing colleges on the burner. "We're reviewing your status," Spellman's admissions voice said, icy and final. "Family instability disqualifies you." Howard echoed it, MIT too, their dreams snuffed out like candles. Was this Ramsey's endgame, breaking them piece by piece? Eviction loomed by morning, the motel manager banging on the door, his gravelly voice demanding payment they didn't have. "Out by 10 or I call the cops," he snarled, his tobacco-stained teeth flashing. Kaleb glared, his ribs throbbing while Kiara stuffed their few belongings, a backpack, her medal, the burner, into a trash bag. "We're not trash," she muttered, chin trembling. Outside, Atlanta's heat baked the pavement, horns blaring. As they trudged nowhere, the city indifferent to their fall. Leonard's arrest, the foreclosure, the college rejections, it was a domino chain Ramsey had toppled with glee. Could they even breathe under this weight? Kiara fought back, her burner buzzing as she launched a petition online. "Free Leonard Jackson, stop Ramsey's corruption," she typed with one thumb, voice recordings of victims looped in, her plea raw. "They're killing us for fighting." Back. It spread fast. 10,000 signatures by noon, hashtags trending, strangers chanting their names outside the courthouse. Kaleb watched, slumped against a bus stop, disbelief warring with hope. "People care," he said, voice cracking. By dusk the pressure worked. Leonard walked free on bail, his suit rumpled but his stride unbroken, reuniting at the motel's cracked lot. "We're not done," he said, hugging them tight, his warmth a lifeline. Had they finally caught a break? The trio clung to that spark, Leonard's release a thin thread of light. They pooled coins for another night, the manager grumbling but taking it. Kaleb charged his tablet at a gas station, Kiara's petition swelling to 20,000, voices roaring for justice. "Ramsey's rattled," Leonard said, his legal mind ticking, pulling strings with a clerk who whispered, "Bail's just the start." The twins dared to smile, Kaleb picturing code, Kiara ink on a page. They'd survived the arrest, the freeze, the eviction. Maybe they could rebuild. Then midnight struck, a roar splitting the night as flames erupted from the motel's roof, glass shattering, smoke choking the air. "Fire!" Kiara yelled, dragging Kaleb out, Leonard behind, their trash bag of life singed but saved. Sirens wailed as firefighters doused the blaze, the motel a gutted shell by dawn. Cops swarmed, Holloway among them, his smirk wider than ever. "Arson," he declared, pointing at the twins, his meaty finger a judge's gavel. "You two torched it, insurance scam, huh?" Kaleb's jaw dropped, Kiara's scream muffled by smoke-thick air. "We were inside," she shouted, coughing, but Holloway cuffed them again, the steel biting harder, dragging them to a squad car. Leonard roared, "This is insanity!" But a cop shoved him back, baton raised. The crowd gaped, petition forgotten as news vans rolled up, cameras catching their second fall. Was Ramsey behind this inferno too? The precinct's holding cells swallowed them, concrete cold against their singed clothes, the fire's heat still, clinging to their skin. Kaleb punched the wall, blood streaking, his ribs screaming. "He's burning us alive," he rasped, voice breaking. Kiara hugged her knees, her metal clutched tight, its gold dulled by ash. "They'll say we did it, no proof," she whispered, despair creeping in. Leonard stood outside the bars, bail denied this time, his hands gripping iron, powerless. Ramsey's loan shark ally had struck, the fire a calculated blow. Holloway's frame up the perfect finish. Their home, their dad, their futures, gone in flames. Could they rise from this ash heap? Does Ramsey's relentless revenge make your blood boil? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think he's the true arsonist here, and smash that like button if you're rooting for the Jacksons to fight this fire. Subscribe now because tomorrow's twist will ignite everything. What's Ramsey's next move after torching their world? You won't believe what's coming. The morning after the motel fire, Atlanta's sky hung heavy with soot as Kaleb and Kiara Jackson huddled in a spare bedroom at Ms. Harper's house, their Carver High history teacher's cramped bungalow, a lifeline in the wreckage. Smoke still clung to their singed clothes, the orange jumpsuit swapped for borrowed sweats. Kaleb's too short at the ankles, Kiara's swallowing her slender frame. Ms. Harper, a wiry woman with grey streaks in her bun, bustled in with mugs of bitter tea, her eyes soft but stern. "You're safe here," she said, voice low, handing Kaleb a charger for his dead tablet. Could they really rebuild from nothing? Chief Justice Leonard Jackson paced downstairs, his rumpled suit a testament to a sleepless night, his phone buzzing with dead-end calls. Kaleb plugged in the tablet, its cracked screen flickering to life, his bruised fingers trembling as he pulled up charred hard drives synced to the cloud before the fire. "Ramsey's prints are on this," he muttered, voice hoarse from smoke, decrypting files with a jury-rigged app. His ribs ached from the cop's elbow, but his mind sharpened, tracing arson signatures, a payment from elite cash to a known firebug, time-stamped hours before the blaze. "He hired someone," Kaleb said, showing Kiara the screen, her ash-streaked face hardening. Was this proof enough to bury him? She nodded, grabbing her burner phone, its battery at 10%, a lifeline she couldn't lose. Kiara slipped into the backyard, the spring air thick with pollen and ash, dialing a protest organizer she'd met online. "It's Kiara Jackson. Ramsey burned us out. I've got evidence. Rally now." Her voice cracked but held, her braids swaying as she paced the patchy grass. Within hours, a crowd swelled outside City Hall, 200 strong, chanting, "Justice! For the Jacksons!" Fists raised, signs scrawled with fury. Kiara went live on a borrowed phone, Ms. Harper's Wi-Fi spotty but enough, her face streaming to thousands. "They framed us, torched us, but we're still here," she said, voice rising over the roar, holding up Kaleb's tablet. The arson file pixelated but clear. Could this spark topple Ramsey? The broadcast hit like a shockwave, trending nationwide, news vans clogging downtown Atlanta. Kaleb watched from the bungalow, his tablet buzzing with notifications, a rare grin cracking his soot-stained face. "They're listening," he said, ribs throbbing as he leaned against the wall. Leonard stormed in, his phone alive now, a clerk whispering, "Governor's watching." By dusk, the pressure snapped. Governor Tate suspended Ramsey, citing public safety concerns, his voice crackling on TV. Judge Ramsey's off the bench pending investigation. Holloway's suspension followed, his badge yanked, the baggy frame-up unraveling under scrutiny. Were the twins finally breaking through? Leonard pulled strings, securing a safe house, a drab apartment in Decatur, 15 miles east. Its beige, walls a blank slate. They moved in that night, Miss Harper hugging them tight, her tea mug pressed into Kiara's hands as a keepsake. "You're tougher than they know," she said, eyes glistening. The twins hauled their trash bag of belongings, Kiara's medal, Kaleb's tablet, a few scorched papers, into the new space, its stale air a step up from the motel's reek. Leonard sank onto a creaky couch, his suit jacket off, relief softening. his stern face. "Suspensions aren't convictions, but it's a start," he said, voice steady. Kaleb nodded, plugging in his charger. Kiara setting her medal on a shelf, its gold a quiet promise. Could they rebuild here? The next day brought glimmers. Leonard's reinstatement hit the wires, his account still frozen, but his title back. A judicial nod to the petition's roar. Colleges called, voices warmer now. "We're reconsidering," Spellman's admissions said, MIT and Howard echoing, "pending stability." Kaleb fist-bumped the air, his ribs protesting, picturing code flowing again. Kiara smiled, her braids pulled back, imagining ink on newsprint. They'd risen from ashes, the safe house a fortress, Ramsey and Holloway sidelined. "We're winning," Kaleb said, sprawled on the floor, tablet humming. Kiara brewed tea in Miss Harper's mug, nodding. For once. Leonard watched, pride swelling, his legal pads reclaiming the table. Was this the turning point? Victory tasted sweet but fleeting, the safe house's quiet a fragile bubble. Kaleb hacked late, tracing Ramsey's allies, Kiara drafting a follow-up for WSB, their rhythm sinking like old times. Leonard met with clerks, thawing his lawsuit. The governor's eye a shield. They ate cheap ramen, laughed at dumb TV reruns, the first lightness in weeks. "We've got him running," Leonard said, slurping noodles, his deep laugh rumbling. The twins grinned, their trash bag unpacked, the medal gleaming, colleges dangling hope. They'd forced suspensions, cleared Leonard, turned the tide. Could this hold? Or was Ramsey plotting from the shadows? Midnight shattered the calm. A black van screeching to a stop outside the Decatur apartment, its engine a low growl splitting the silence. 3 figures piled out, hulking shadows in ski masks, crowbars glinting under streetlights. Kiara woke to glass smashing, the safe house's window exploding inward, shards raining on her bed. "Kaleb!" she yelled, scrambling up, her medal clattering to the floor. Kaleb bolted in, tablet clutched, ribs screaming as he saw her yanked. Through the breach, a masked arm around her throat. "Let her go!" he roared, lunging, but a crowbar cracked his skull, blood blooming, dropping him cold. Leonard burst in, fists raised, but a taser zapped him down, his body convulsing on the carpet. Was this Ramsey's final blow? Kiara thrashed, her screams muffled by a gloved hand, dragged to the van as tires squealed, the safe house shrinking in the dark. Her braids whipped, burner loss, the mug shattering on asphalt. Kaleb groaned awake, blood pooling, his vision swimming as Leonard twitched beside him, taser barbs stuck in his chest. "They took her," Kaleb rasped, crawling to his tablet. Its screen cracked but alive. A message blinked. "Destroy the evidence or she dies, Ramsey." Leonard coughed, ripping out the barbs, his voice a growl. "He's off the bench but not out." Could he still kill from a distance? The van roared through Atlanta's back streets. Kiara bound in the back, her wrists raw under zip ties, heart hammering as masked thugs loomed. "Ramsey says hi," one grunted, his voice a gravel pit, crowbar tapping her knee. She glared, fear, warring with fury, her mind racing to Kaleb's arson file, the protest, their fragile win. They'd cornered him, and now he'd struck, not with law, but with blood. Leonard staggered up, dialing ex-cops on a borrowed phone, his voice shaking. "Kidnapping, Decatur, now." Kaleb tracked her burner's last ping, his head throbbing, blood dripping. Could they save her before Ramsey's order snapped her neck? The safe house lay in ruins, glass crunching underfoot, the couch singed from a stray spark. Kaleb's tablet buzzed, his hack pinpointing a warehouse off Interstate 20, 10 miles. Away Kiara's signal faint but alive. Leonard rallied his team, 3 grizzled ex-officers piling into a beat-up sedan, guns holstered, eyes hard. "We're getting her," Leonard said, his suit torn, resolve ironclad. Kaleb gripped the tablet, blood crusting his brow, ribs a dull ache. They'd risen from the motel's ashes, forced Ramsey's hand, only to see him rip Kiara away. The van's taillights faded, her fate a question mark in the night. Could they outrun this new terror? Kaleb Jackson staggered to his feet in the trashed Decatur safe house, blood trickling from his cracked skull, staining the carpet where the crowbar had struck. His ribs throbbed, a dull roar beneath the panic, as Chief Justice Leonard Jackson ripped taser barbs from his chest, his suit torn, breath ragged. Kiara was gone, snatched through the shattered window by Ramsey's masked thugs, her screams still echoing in Kaleb's ears. The tablet lay cracked but glowing, its message stark. Destroy the evidence or she dies. Kaleb's hands shook, his mind racing over the arson file, the slush fund, every bite tying Ramsey to ruin. Could he fake it to save her? Leonard's ex-cop team screeched up outside, headlights slicing the dark. Their sedan a war machine primed for blood. Kaleb's fingers flew across the tablet, blood smearing the screen as he spoofed a deletion, uploading a dummy wipe to Ramsey's Dropbox, his breath hitching with each tap. They'll think it's gone, he rasped, voice raw, tracking Kiara's burner ping to a warehouse off Interstate 20, 10 miles west, its signal faint but pulsing. Leonard barked orders, his deep voice a lifeline. Move fast, no mistakes. As three grizzled ex-officers, Dwayne, Marcus, Tito, piled out, guns drawn, faces carved from years of street grit. Dwayne, bald with a scar over his eye, nodded at Kaleb. Kid's got guts. Marcus, stocky with a grey beard, checked his clip, while Tito, lean and silent, cracked his knuckles. Could this crew storm hell itself? The sedan roared through. Atlanta's backroads, tires chewing gravel. The city's neon blur a distant dream. Kaleb clutched the tablet, his head pounding, syncing Kiara's signal to Dwayne's burner, the warehouse looming in his mind, a rusted tomb where Ramsey's revenge waited. Leonard gripped the wheel, his knuckles bone-white, eyes locked ahead. The taser's sting, a memory he'd bury in action. She's alive, he said, more prayer than fact, the sedan hitting 80 on a deserted stretch, wind howling through cracked windows. Kaleb's spoof held, Ramsey's reply silent, but the clock ticked, 10 minutes since the snatch. Could they reach her before the crowbar swung again? Inside the warehouse, Kiara thrashed against zip ties, her wrists raw, blood seeping into the concrete floor of a cavernous shell stinking of oil and rot. Three thugs loomed, ski masks tight over pockmarked faces, crowbars dangling like executioners' tools. The leader, a hulking brute with a gravel voice, checked his phone, grunting. Kid trashed it. Boss says wait. Kiara's braids stuck to her sweat-slick neck, her medal lost in the safe house rubble, her mind racing to Kaleb's hack, her protest. You're dead when this leaks, she spat, voice steady despite the fear clawing her gut. The brute laughed, tapping her knee with the crowbar, metal cold against her skin. Was Ramsey watching through these goons? The sedan skidded to a halt a block from the warehouse, its engine cut, silence swallowing the night. Kaleb pointed at the tablet. She's in there, northwest corner, his voice a hiss, blood crusting his brow. Leonard led the charge, a shadow among shadows, Dwayne and Marcus flanking. Tito circling back, their boots silent on cracked asphalt. The warehouse hulked against the sky, its windows blacked out, a rusted door ajar spilling faint light. Kaleb limped behind, tablet clutched, ribs screaming with each step. They breached the door, guns up, the air thick with rust and menace. Could they pull this off without a shot? Inside, Kiara's captors tensed, the brute's phone buzzing as Ramsey's voice crackled. Check the wipe. She seized the distraction, kicking a loose pipe, its clang echoing, drawing their eyes. Dwayne burst in first, a gunshot splitting the dark, the brute's crowbar clattering as he dropped, blood blooming on his chest. Marcus tackled the second thug, a wiry man with a scar pinning him with a knee, while Tito's silenced pistol dropped the third, a lanky figure crumpling soundless. Kiara rolled free, zip ties snapping under Dwayne's knife, her wrists bleeding but her spirit unbroken. "Kaleb!" she yelled, spotting him staggering in, Leonard's arm around him. Was this rescue real? The team dragged the thugs' bodies aside, zip-tying the survivor, Marcus's knee grinding his spine. Kaleb sank against a crate, blood dripping, his tablet sparking but alive, Kiara's arms around him, her breath hot with relief. Leonard scanned the scene, his suit shredded, voice a growl. Ramsey hired them, proof's here. He snatched the brute's phone, its screen glowing with Ramsey's call log, a direct line to the suspended judge. They piled into the sedan. Kiara, in back, her wrists wrapped in Tito's bandana, the warehouse fading as sirens wailed distant. Could this nail Ramsey for good? Back at the safe house, dawn bled through broken windows. The twins crashing on the couch, Leonard pacing with the thug's phone. Kaleb uploaded the call log to WSB, Kiara streaming live from her cracked burner, her voice raw but fierce. "Ramsey kidnapped me to kill our fight. He's a criminal, not a judge." The clip exploded online, millions watching. The governor's office flooded with calls. By noon, cops swarmed Ramsey's Buckhead mansion, his grey hair wild as they cuffed him, conspiracy charges piling up. Holloway cracked under pressure, spilling to the DA. Ramsey paid for it all, loans, fire, snatch. Were the twins finally safe? Atlanta buzzed with the arrests, the safe house a battered throne as Leonard sank into a chair, his face etched with exhaustion, pride flickering in his eyes. "You did it," he said, voice thick, hugging Kaleb and Kiara tight. They're singed, clothes a testament to survival. Kaleb grinned, his head bandaged by Marcus, ribs taped, the tablet a hero's relic. Kiara clutched her retrieved medal, its gold scratched but gleaming, Spellman whispering her name again. Ramsey's empire teetered, Holloway's confession a hammer, the governor vowing reform. They'd rescued her, exposed him, turned kidnap into victory. Could this be the end of the nightmare? The afternoon sun baked the wreckage, news vans circling, the twins savoring a rare quiet. Kaleb patched his tablet. Kiara drafted a WSB pitch, Leonard's lawsuit roaring back to life. They ate stale crackers from Ms. Harper's stash, laughter breaking through, a fragile peace settling in. "He's locked up," Kaleb said, crunching, his grin wide. Kiara nodded, her braids pulled back. For now. But dusk brought a chill. The TV flickering on, an anchor's voice cutting through. "Ramsey from jail leaks a forged confession. Leonard Jackson framed me." The screen flashed a typed lie, Leonard's name smeared, public doubt stirring anew. Had Ramsey just flipped? Their triumph again? The safe house tensed, Leonard's fists clenching, the cracker box crumpling in Kaleb's grip. "He's a snake," Kaleb growled, blood flaking from his bandage. Kiara stared at the screen, her medal heavy in her hand, the forged words a poison. Spreading online. Trolls latching on. "Chief Justice a fraud." Leonard's phone buzzed, allies wavering. The governor's silence deafening. They'd saved Kiara, cuffed Ramsey, only to see him strike from a cell. His reach a spectre. They couldn't kill. Could he still unravel everything? Did Ramsey's jailhouse lie shock you as much as it did the twins? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Leonard's innocent and deserves to fight back, and hit that like button if you're rooting for Kaleb and Kiara to crush this smear. Subscribe now because tomorrow's chapter will twist the knife deeper. What happens when Holloway's confession meets Ramsey's forgery? You won't want to miss this next blow. The Decatur safe house trembled under a barrage of shouts and shattering glass as dusk settled over Atlanta, the forged confession from Judge Victor Ramsey igniting a firestorm of public rage. Kaleb Jackson crouched beneath a cracked window, his bandaged head throbbing, blood seeping through as a brick crashed through, skittering across the carpet. Kiara ducked beside him, her medal clutched tight, its scratched gold a faint shield against the chaos outside, her braids tangled with sweat and fear. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson stood rigid by the door, his torn suit a ghost of authority. Phone silent as Ramsey's lie. "Leonard framed me," spread like wildfire online, turning allies into doubters, the governor's support into a void. How could a jail cell amplify Ramsey's venom this far? The TV blared in the corner, its screen flickering with news loops. Chief Justice accused of corruption, twins' father a fraud. The forged confession, typed in cold precision, painted Leonard as the mastermind, bribing judges, planting evidence all to bury Ramsey and save his kids. Protesters swarmed the street, a mob of 50 swelling to hundreds, their chants, "Justice for Ramsey," a twisted echo of Kiara's rally days ago. Kaleb peeked out, his ribs aching, seeing faces he'd known, neighbors, classmates now snarling, fists raised, hurling stones at the safe house's beige walls. "They believe it," he rasped, voice cracking. Kiara's eyes burned. He's winning again. Could a lie this bold erase their rescue? Leonard slammed a fist into the wall, plaster dusting his knuckles, his deep voice a growl. He's got no proof, it's a bluff. But the mob didn't care, their rage fueled by trending hashtags. Leonard lies, racking up millions of views, trolls flooding Kaleb's cracked tablet with venom. Rich kids and their crooked dad deserve jail. Kiara's burner buzzed. WSB's Carla texting. Stories flipped, can't run your side yet. The safe house shook again, a Molotov cocktail smashing against the porch, flames licking up, smoke curling through broken panes. Kaleb yanked. Kiara back, coughing. They're gonna burn us out. Was Ramsey turning their own people against them? The night stretched into a siege, sirens distant but useless, cops slow to respond, Holloway's shadow lingering in their absence. Leonard doused the porch fire with a scavenged bucket, his suit singed, sweat streaking his face as he barricaded the door with a toppled shelf. Kaleb scavenged his tablet, its battery low, diving into backups from the warehouse raid, his blood crusted, fingers trembling. "I've got something," he said, voice tight, pulling up audio from Holloway's phone, a snippet buried in static. Ramsey's voice, crisp and cold. "Pay Holloway 10 grand to plant the baggie, keep the twins quiet." Kiara's eyes widened. "That's gold. Could this pierce the lie?" Kaleb patched the audio to a podcast app, his ribs screaming as he hunched over, uploading it raw with the title, Ramsey's Real Voice, The Truth. "No time for polish," he muttered, hitting send, the file blasting to 10,000 listeners. In an hour, shares spiking as the mob's roar faltered outside. Kiara watched the numbers climb, her breath held, the safe house's walls shuddering under fewer blows. Leonard peeked through a shattered blind. "They're listening," he said, voice low, hope flickering. By midnight, the governor's office called, a clerk's voice shaky. "We've heard it. Leonard's reinstated, accounts thawing." The mob thinned, bricks stilled, Ramsey's forgery cracking under Holloway's own words. Had they turned the tide again? Morning broke grey and smoky, the safe house scarred but standing, the street littered with glass and charred debris. Leonard's title returned, his phone buzzing with allies, the governor vowing, "Ramsey's done." Kaleb grinned, his bandage soaked red, the podcast hitting 1 million plays, trolls retreating as supporters resurfaced. Kiara swept glass, her medal back on the shelf, Spellman's call echoing in her mind. "We're reviewing positively." They'd beaten the lie, reclaimed Leonard, silenced the hate for now. "We're back," Kaleb said, sprawled on the couch, tablet humming. Leonard nodded, his suit patched with tape. For good this time. Could they trust this fragile win? The safe house settled into a tense calm, Kaleb patching his tech, Kiara drafting for WSB, Leonard's lawsuit roaring back. They ate scavenged ramen, the TV off, its lies muted. Ramsey's assets seized, his jail cell a cage, Holloway's confession, a lock. "He's got no moves left," Leonard said, slurping broth, his deep laugh a rare sound. Kiara smiled, her braids tied back. "Maybe we've won." But noon shattered the peace, a sedan screeching past, gunfire erupting, bullets ripping. Through the safe house's front, glass exploding inward, Kiara screamed, diving, her arm grazed, blood blooming on her sleeve as Kaleb tackled her down. Leonard hitting the floor beside them. The car peeled off, tires smoking, leaving silence and chaos. The safe house a battlefield again. Kaleb's ears rang, his bandage torn, blood mixing with Kiara's on the carpet. "You okay?" he gasped, her nod shaky, her arm clutched tight, the graze shallow but stinging. Leonard crawled up, his suit riddled with holes, unharmed but livid. "Holloway," he spat, spotting the cop's buzz cut in the fleeing sedan's window, free on a technicality, his badge gone but his hate alive. Kiara's medal skittered across the floor, dented, her breath ragged. Ramsey's still pulling. "Strings," she whispered, dread sinking in. Had their podcast victory just unleashed a deadlier beast? The safe house's walls bled daylight through bullet holes, the couch shredded, ramen bowls shattered. Kaleb grabbed his tablet, its screen, spider-webbed but alive, tracking Holloway's car via a hacked traffic cam, his fingers slick with blood and sweat. "He's heading downtown," he said, voice trembling, ribs a firestorm of pain. Leonard dialed his ex-cop's voice a growl. "Drive by at Decatur. Holloway's loose. Find him." Kiara tore her sleeve, wrapping her arm, her medal clutched. Like a talisman, tears held back. "He shot at us," she said, voice breaking. The grey's a burning reminder of Ramsey's reach. Could he kill from behind bars? Leonard's team roared up, Dwayne's bald head gleaming as he stormed in. Gun drawn, Marcus and Tito sweeping the perimeter. "Nobody's hit bad," Dwayne grunted, checking Kiara's arm, his scar twitching with fury. "Holloway's a ghost now," Marcus said, grey beard bristling, "but we'll hunt him." Kaleb's tablet pinged. Holloway's sedan ditched near a MARTA station, the cop vanishing into Atlanta's veins. Leonard stood, his suit a tattered flag, resolve ironclad. "He's Ramsey's last play. We end this." The twins nodded. Kiara's arm throbbing, Kaleb's head spinning, their wind tainted by blood. Was this survival or a prelude to worse? Atlanta's spring wind howled through the bullet-riddled safehouse, carrying the stench of gunpowder and fear. Kaleb's tablet buzzed, its hack faltering, Holloway's trail cold, his drive-by a warning Ramsey still ruled from jail. Kiara bandaged, her graze with Tito's kit, her medal dented but hers, a spark of defiance. Leonard paced, his phone alive with allies, the governor's voice distant. "We're investigating." They'd beaten the mob, reclaimed Leonard, only to face bullets. Holloway's hate a live wire Ramsey wielded. Could they dodge this new death? Kiara Jackson winced as she tightened a makeshift bandage around her grazed arm. The Decatur safehouse, a bullet-riddled tomb under Atlanta's grey dawn, its air thick with gunpowder and dread. Kaleb crouched beside her, his bandaged head leaking. Blood ribs a furnace of pain from Holloway's drive-by. His cracked tablet glowing with a hacked traffic cam feed now cold. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson stood over them, his suit shredded, pacing the shattered living room, his ex-cop team, Dwayne, Marcus, Tito, guarding the perimeter, guns drawn against the silence. Holloway was loose, Ramsey's puppet, and Kiara's. Blood on the carpet was proof their victory was a mirage. Could they outlast this relentless storm? Kiara's arm throbbed, the graze shallow but raw, her medal dented in her pocket, a bruised symbol of resilience. "He's not stopping," she whispered, voice shaky, braids tangled with sweat and dust. Kaleb nodded, his fingers slick on the tablet, diving into backups, his mind a blade cutting through panic. "I'll trap him," he said, voice hoarse, rigging a digital sting, fake texts luring Holloway to a meet, spoofed as Ramsey's orders. "Finish them, Peachtree Plaza, noon." Leonard watched, his jaw tight, suit patched with tape, his deep voice steady. "Smart, we'll be there." Was this their last stand, or a fatal gamble? The ex-cops rallied, Dwayne's bald head gleaming as he loaded a shotgun, Marcus's grey, beard bristling with focus, Tito's lean frame coiled like a spring. "He'll bite," Dwayne grunted, scar twitching, checking Kaleb's spoof on his burner, the bait set. They piled into the sedan, Kiara in back, her arm in a sling from Tito's kit. Kaleb clutching the tablet, Leonard at the wheel, his knuckles white. Atlanta's streets blurred past, horns blaring, the safehouse fading. Its bullet holes a scar they'd avenge. Peachtree Plaza loomed, a glass tower downtown, noon sun glaring off its panes. Could they snare Holloway before he struck again? Kaleb's sting worked, Holloway's sedan rolling into the plaza's lot, his buzz cut visible through tinted glass, a lone wolf lured by Ramsey's ghost. Dwayne and Marcus flanked left, Tito right. Leonard and the twins in shadow, a trap snapping shut. Kaleb hit record on the tablet, its mic hot, streaming live to a hidden cloud, his breath held as Holloway stepped out, gun holstered, eyes darting. "Ramsey wants them dead," Holloway muttered into a burner, voice caught clear. "I'll do it clean this time." Kiara's stomach twisted, her graze burning, proof he'd shot at them. Was this the nail in Ramsey's coffin? Dwayne moved. First, shotgun raised. "Drop it, Holloway!" His roar splitting the lot, Marcus and Tito closing in, guns steady. Holloway spun, hand twitching to his holster, but Leonard lunged, tackling him to the asphalt, his suit ripping as fists flew, Holloway's nose cracking under a punch. Kaleb streamed it all, blood dripping from his bandage, ribs screaming, the tablet shaking but live. Thousands watching Holloway thrash. Ramsey paid me, spilling from his busted lips. Kiara leaned from the sedan, her sling tight, recording backup on her cracked burner, her voice a whisper. We've got him. Could this end the nightmare? Cops swarmed, sirens wailing. Holloway cuffed and shoved into a squad car, his buzz cut matted with blood. Confession echoing online, the plaza a circus of flashing lights and shouting reporters. Kaleb's stream hit 1 million views. Ramsey's name torched in real time. The governor's office calling Leonard. He's done. You're clear. Holloway's rearrest stuck, no technicality this time. His words a noose around Ramsey's neck. Leonard stood, suit in tatters, his title solid, accounts unfreezing, allies roaring back. We broke him, he said, voice thick, hugging the twins tight, Kiara's arms stinging, Kaleb's head spinning. Was this justice at last? Atlanta exhaled, the plaza clearing, news vans peeling off, the twins crashing in the sedan, exhaustion claiming them. Leonard drove to a new safe house, a friend's loft in Midtown. Its clean walls a balm, the bullet-riddled Decatur a memory. Colleges rang, Spellman's voice warm. You're reinstated, MIT and Howard echoing, offers firm. Kiara smiled, her medal on a shelf, its dents a badge picturing newsrooms. Kaleb grinned, tablet patched, code flowing in his mind. MIT's labs close. Ramsey faced life in prison, Holloway's confession sealing it, the governor vowing trials. We're free, Kaleb said, sprawled on a couch, ribs taped by Marcus. Could they finally heal? The loft buzzed with fragile peace. Leonard's lawsuit a juggernaut now. Ramsey's empire crumbling under seized assets. Holloway's cell a mirror to his bosses. They ate takeout, greasy burgers, fries, laughter breaking through, a sound lost for weeks. He's finished, Leonard said, ketchup on his chin, his deep laugh rumbling. Kiara nodded, her sling off, arm stiff but mending. Spellman's gates hers again. Kaleb rebuilt his rig, fingers steady, MIT calling his name. They'd trapped Holloway, cleared Leonard, turned bullets into triumph. Was this the end of Ramsey's? Rain night fell, the loft's windows dark. Atlanta's skyline a quiet glow, the twins savoring a win hard won. Kaleb synced his tablet. Kiara drafted for WSB, Leonard's legal pads sprawling, their rhythm reborn. We're stronger, Kiara said, braids tied back, medal gleaming, her voice firm. But midnight struck, a ping shattering the calm. Kaleb's tablet flashing a hack alert. Ramsey's estranged son, Victor Jr., a tech mogul breaching his cloud. Deepfake videos spilling out. Kaleb and Kiara admitting the scam, their voices warped, faces twisted. We fooled you all. Looping. Online. Was Ramsey's bloodline striking back? The loft tensed, Kaleb's burger dropping, grease staining the floor, his ribs a dull ache as he traced the breach. Victor Jr.'s got millions behind him. Kiara's phone buzzed, Spellman retracting again. We can't verify integrity. MIT and Howard echoing, doors slamming shut. Leonard's jaw clenched, his suit patched but powerless, the deepfakes trending, Jackson fraud reviving, the governor's silence chilling. He's not done, Leonard growled, fists tight, the loft's peace a lie. Kaleb's tablet sparked, Kiara's medal dulled, their triumph tanking under a new tech terror. Could Ramsey's son undo it all? Atlanta slept oblivious, the loft. A fortress breached by code, not bullets. Victor Jr.'s deepfakes a silent bomb. Colleges gone, public trust crumbling again. Kaleb's hack faltered, his cloud a sieve, blood flaking from his bandage as he fought the breach, ribs protesting. Kiara clutched her burner, its battery low. WSB's Carla texting, "Can't air this yet." Leonard paced, his lawsuit stalling. Ramsey's reach stretching through his son, a mogul with no bars to hold him. They'd trapped Holloway, freed Leonard, only to face a digital guillotine. Could they cut this new thread? The Midtown loft's dim light flickered over Kaleb Jackson's hunched form, his bandaged head leaking blood onto a scavenged keyboard, the tablet's cracked screen buzzing with Victor Jr.'s deepfake assault. Kiara sat cross-legged beside him, her grazed arm stiff in a sling, her burner phone glowing with retracted college offers, Spellman's rejection a fresh wound. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson paced the hardwood floor, his patched suit a tattered banner. His lawsuit stalled as Ramsey's son, a tech mogul with a fortune in the millions, turned their voices into lies. "We fooled you all," the deepfakes, mocked, trending worldwide, tanking their futures again. Could they counter this digital dagger? Kaleb's ribs ached, a dull fire from Holloway's drive-by, but his fingers flew, dissecting the deepfake's code, his breath ragged as he spotted flaws, pixel stutters, audio glitches, sloppy seams a mogul's money couldn't hide. "It's amateur," he rasped, voice hoarse, rigging a live stream on a borrowed laptop, Miss Harper's old clunker hauled from her attic. "I'll debunk it real time," he said, sinking the tablet, his blood-crusted brow furrowed. Kiara nodded, her braids tied back, grabbing the burner to rally elite cash victims, her voice sharp. "Testify now, class action suit. We end this." Was this their last weapon against Ramsey's bloodline? The stream launched at dawn. Kaleb's face filling screens, blood flaking as he tore apart the fakes. "See this jump? Fake. Audio's off by 3 milliseconds, his pointer dancing. Over glitches, 1 million viewers surging in, shares spiking. Kiara dialed Miss Ella, Mr. Tatum, 10 others, their voices crackling through. "They took my home," Miss Ella sobbed. "Threatened my life," Mr. Tatum growled, a chorus of pain. Drowning the deepfake's lies, Leonard watched, his suit patched with duct tape, phone buzzing as allies tuned in. The governor's clerk texting, "We're live too." Could this flood wash Ramsey's son away? Atlanta woke to the stream, streets humming, the loft a nerve. Center as Kaleb's debunk hit 5 million views. Trolls retreating, Jackson truth trending, the deepfake's grip slipping. Kiara's victims piled into a Zoom call, their faces a gallery of resolve, her burner patched to WSB. Carla's voice booming, "Class action filed, Ramsey's empire targeted." Leonard slipped out, driving to Fulton County Jail, his sedan, rattling, confronting Ramsey in a stark cell, bars cold against his fists. "Confess," he demanded, voice a thunderclap, shoving a recorder under Ramsey's grey beard, his eyes wild but cornered. Was this the final crack? Ramsey slumped, his robe swapped for orange, the cell's fluorescent buzz a cage for his snarl. "You think you've won?" he rasped, voice gravelly, but Leonard leaned closer, recorder rolling. "Talk, or your son sinks too." Ramsey's lip curled, then broke, words spilling. "I paid Holloway, torched the motel, snatched her, all—" "Gov it," his confession a rope tightening around his neck. Victor Jr.'s deepfakes a desperate son's gamble. Leonard stormed out, the tape a grenade, uploading it to Kaleb's stream. Ramsey's voice echoing, "I rigged it all." Millions gasping online. Could this bury the dynasty? The loft erupted, Kaleb fist-bumping the air, ribs screaming, the stream hitting 10 million. Ramsey's confession a sledgehammer, Victor Jr.'s servers crashing under scrutiny, his mogul mask slipping. Kiara's class action swelled, lawyers swarming, elite cash's assets frozen, victims cheering through the burner. "We're free!" Leonard returned, tape in hand, his deep laugh rumbling. "He's done." Cops raided Victor Jr.'s penthouse. His slick suit crumpled as cuffs snapped, hacking charges piling up, the deepfakes traced to his IP. "We're clear," Kaleb said, tablet sparking, Kiara's medal gleaming anew, colleges calling back, "You're in." Was this their true dawn? Midtown sighed, the loft a battered Victor, Ramsey's empire a smoking ruin, Victor Jr.'s arrest sealing it, Holloway's cell a twin to his bosses. They ate pizza, grease-staining fingers, laughter loud, the first real rest in months. "He's gone," Leonard said, suit off, shirt sleeves rolled, his voice warm, hugging the twins tight, Kiara's arm mending, Kaleb's ribs taped. Carver High reinstated them, graduation set, Spelman and MIT firm, their names gold again. "We did it," Kiara said, braids swaying, medal on the table, her voice steady. Could they finally breathe? Graduation came fast, late May, sun blazing over Carver's field. Kaleb and Kiara in black gowns, gold cords glinting, their steps sure as they crossed the stage, diplomas in hand. Leonard beaming, his suit new, accounts flush. Classmates cheered. Teachers nodded. The deepfake's a faded lie. Ramsey's confession a lock, Victor Jr.'s trial looming. "We made it," Kaleb whispered. Cap tilted, ribs a dull ache, MIT's labs calling. Kiara grinned, medal pinned. Spellman's gates hers, ink waiting. They'd buried the past, their futures bright, Atlanta's spring air sweet. Was this the end at last? The loft stood quiet, pizza boxes stacked, the twins plotting, Kaleb coding, Kiara writing, Leonard's lawsuit a victory lap, elite cash gutted, victims paid. "We're stronger," Kiara said, her voice clear, medal polished. A journalist's fire in her eyes. Kaleb nodded, tablet humming, a coder's dream alive, unbreakable. But midnight struck, a letter sliding under the door, its paper heavy, Ramsey's scrawl stark. "My dying wish, hit list, you're first." Penned from jail, handed to a loyal guard, cancer eating him, his last gasp a threat. Had they won, or was death still stalking? The loft froze, Kaleb's pizza dropping, grease pooling, his ribs a sudden flare as he snatched the letter, blood flaking from his bandage. He's dead soon, but this isn't. Kiara's medal trembled in her hand, her arm stiff, Spellman's joy souring. "A guard?" Leonard's jaw clenched, suit jacket back on, his voice a growl. "He's got one play left." The letter listed them, Kaleb, Kiara, Leonard, targets. For a ghost Ramsey couldn't command. His empire dust, but his hate alive. Could a dying man still strike? Atlanta slept, the loft a fortress braced, Kaleb's tablet scanning for guard IDs, Kiara's burner dialing WSB, Leonard's ex-cops called back, Dwayne's shotgun ready. They'd crushed Ramsey, his son, Holloway, turned deepfakes to ash, graduated with gold, only to face a hit list, a final twist from a corpse to be. "We'll stop it," Leonard said, his deep voice iron, hugging them, the twins nodding, Kaleb's ribs aching, Kiara's arm mending, their fight unbowed. Was Wani this the last battle, or a shadow they'd never shake? The Midtown loft buzzed with tension as Carver High's graduation party pulsed below, late May's humid night wrapping Atlanta in a sticky embrace, laughter and music drifting up through the open windows. Kaleb Jackson leaned against the kitchen counter, his black gown draped over a chair, gold cord tangled, his bandaged head throbbing from Holloway's drive-by, ribs a dull ache under taped skin. Kiara stood by the table, her gown off, metal pinned to a crisp blouse, her grazed arm, stiff but healing, braids swaying as she sliced pizza for classmates milling downstairs. Chief Justice Leonard Jackson stood by the door, his new suit crisp, eyes scanning the hit list Ramsey had scrawled from his jail cell. Kaleb, Kiara, Leonard, first, a dying man's curse, handed to a loyal guard. Could a cancer-riddled judge still draw blood? The loft's hardwood gleamed under soft lights, pizza boxes stacked, the twins' diplomas framed on the wall, Spellman and MIT seals glinting, a hard-won triumph after months of hell. Kaleb sipped soda, his tablet humming. On the counter, synced to jail logs tracking guards with ties to Ramsey, his fingers itching to hack deeper, ribs protesting each breath. Kiara laughed with a friend, her voice bright, passing out slices, the party a bubble of joy they'd earned, deepfakes debunked, Ramsey cuffed, Victor Jr. arrested, elite cash gutted. Leonard folded the hit list, tucking it into his pocket, his deep voice low, "We're watching. He's got no reach left." Was this piece real or a trap waiting to spring? Footsteps thudded up the stairs, heavy and deliberate, cutting through the bass thumping below, Kaleb's soda can pausing. Mid-air, Kiara's knife stalling over crust, Leonard's hand twitching to his phone. The door burst open, a hulking figure filling the frame, 6'5". A guard's uniform stretched tight over muscled arms, a scar slashing his cheek, eyes black with intent, a pistol gleaming in his meaty fist. "Ramsey sends regards," he growled, voice a gravel pit stepping in, the gun swinging toward Kaleb, its barrel a tunnel to death. Could this be the hit list's first strike? Kaleb dove, soda splashing, his ribs screaming as he hit the floor, the gun barking, a bullet ripping through the counter, wood splintering where his head had been. Kiara screamed, dropping the knife, diving behind the table, her medal clattering, classmates below shrieking, scattering in chaos. Leonard lunged, his suit ripping as he tackled the guard. A freight train meeting a wall, the gun skidding across hardwood, firing wild. A second shot grazing Kaleb's shoulder, blood blooming through his shirt. "Get back!" Leonard roared, wrestling the giant, his fists hammering, the guard's scar twisting as he snarled, shoving Leonard off with a grunt. Was this how Ramsey's curse claimed them? Kiara scrambled, her arm throbbing, grabbing a brass trophy from the shelf. Carver's. Student of the Year. Hers. Its weight solid in her hands, adrenaline surging as she swung, the base cracking the guard's skull, a sickening crunch echoing, blood spraying, his bulk crumpling like a felled tree. The gun spun free, Kaleb snatching it, his shoulder leaking, ribs a furnace, pointing it shaky at the motionless heap, breath ragged. Leonard rolled up, suit torn, his chest heaving. He's down. Voice a rasp, kicking the pistol away, the guard's eyes blank, blood pooling under his cracked head. Had Kiara just killed to save them? Sirens wailed. Atlanta's night splitting as cops swarmed the loft, red and blue lights flashing through shattered windows, classmates sobbing below, pizza forgotten, the party a graveyard of joy. Kaleb slumped, gun dropping, his shoulder wet fire, blood dripping down his arm, ribs pulsing. "He came for us," he gasped, tablet sparking on the counter, jail logs frozen mid-hack. Kiara stood over the body, trophy trembling, her blouse speckled red, braids wild. "Self-defense," she whispered, voice breaking, her medal dented on the floor, Spellman's gates blurring in her mind. Leonard grabbed the hit list, shoving. "Say it a cop. Ramsey ordered this." His deep voice iron despite the chaos. Could they prove it? The lead officer, a wiry man with a buzz cut, bagged the gun, his voice clipped. "We'll trace him. Looks like a guard, ex-con, Ramsey's old crew." Cops hauled the body out, its bulk limp, blood streaking the stairs. Classmates gaping, phones filming. The loft a crime scene. Pizza boxes toppled, diplomas askew. Kaleb winced, Dwayne's ex-cop hands taping his shoulder, ribs taped tighter. "You're tough, kid," the bald man grunted, scar twitching. Kiara sank to the couch, trophy beside her, her arm aching. "He was gonna kill us," she said, eyes hollow, Leonard's arm around her, his suit a rag. "You saved us." He murmured, pride and pain mixing. Was this victory or a deeper wound? Detectives swarmed. The hit list photocopied, jail logs pulled, Ramsey's cell searched, cancer eating him but his hate alive. The guard ID'd, Marlon Briggs, paroled a month ago, loyal to Ramsey for decades, a ghost hired for blood. "He's linked," a detective said, voice flat, showing Leonard a photo. Briggs's scar unmistakable, Ramsey's scrawl a match. Targets confirmed. Kaleb's tablet pinged, jail cams hacked, Briggs slipping out hours ago, Ramsey's nod caught. In grainy black and white, a dying order sealed. Kiara clutched her medal, its dents a map of survival. "He's gone," she whispered, arm stiff, Spellman fading, MIT a question for Kaleb. Could they escape this shadow? The loft cleared, cops gone, classmates sent home, the party a memory. Drowned in blood, pizza cold, the counter splintered, Kaleb's blood drying in streaks, his shoulder bandaged, ribs a quiet agony, tablet dead, its hack complete. Kiara swept glass, her blouse stained, medal back on, her voice steady. "We decide now," facing Leonard, his suit a ruin, eyes searching hers. "Testify or run?" Leonard sank to a chair, hit list crumpled in his fist. He's dying. But his network's alive. Statewide corruption, judges, cops, elite cash routes. Was this their chance to end it all? Kaleb stood, shoulder stiff, ribs a dull roar. "We fight." His voice firm, tablet sparking as he rebooted it. Jail logs sinking, Ramsey's web sprawling, names, dates, payoffs, a cancer beyond one man. Kiara nodded, her arm mending. Medal. Gleaming. "Testify. Expose it. Spellman's mine, MIT's yours." Her braids tight, a journalist's fire burning. "We turn this into our win." Leonard's jaw set, his deep voice a vow. "I'm with you. pulling a briefcase, legal pads spilling, his suit shed for a polo. But I'm done with the bench. Could he flip their trauma into a crusade? The twist landed. Leonard's words a thunderclap, Kaleb's soda can clattering, Kiara's medal trembling. Resigning? Kaleb asked, voice cracking, ribs flaring, blood flaking from his bandage, tablet humming with Ramsey's web. Leonard nodded, his suit discarded, polo loose. I'm your lawyer now. We take this statewide, root it out. No robes, no gavels, just us. Kiara's eyes widened, her arms stiff. You're quitting justice? Leonard's laugh rumbled, no, redefining it. His legal pads a map. We sue the network, testify, break it wide. Was this the end of his career or their beginning? Atlanta's dawn crept through bullet holes, the loft a battered throne, Kaleb's tablet alive, Kiara's burner buzzing WSB. We're in, Carla texted. Leonard's resignation drafted. A press conference set. Chief Justice quits, joins twins against corruption. They packed. Pizza boxes trashed. Diplomas clutched. Medal polished. The safe house a stepping stone. Ramsey's hit list a spark. Briggs's blood a price. Their fight unbowed. Kaleb grinned, shoulder taped, ribs taped. We hunt now. Tablet. Sinking, MIT waiting. Kiara nodded, braids tight. We write the ending, Spellman hers, ink ready. Could they turn hunted into hunters? The press swarmed Fulton County Courthouse, cameras flashing, Leonard's voice booming. I resign to fight with my children, expose a statewide ring Ramsey built. Kaleb and Kiara beside him, diplomas. Raised, medal glinting, blood and Graze's badges of war the hit list waved. Briggs's death a rallying cry. We testify, Sue, end it. Ramsey died that night, cancer claiming him, his cell empty but his network quaked. Judges sweating, cops scattering, elite cash's roots yanked. Kaleb's tablet streamed, Kiara's words aired, their futures teetering, justice or vengeance. A line they'd draw. Was this their legacy? The loft stood quiet, Atlanta's spring fading to summer, Kaleb coding, Kiara writing, Leonard lawyering, their crusade launched, Ramsey's web unraveling, lawsuits piling, victims cheering, Spellman, and mighty doors wide. They'd killed the guard, buried Ramsey, flipped Leonard's life, turned trauma into a blade, hunted becoming hunters. The hit list a battle cry, their names gold again, but the edge loomed, justice a tightrope, vengeance a fall. We're free, Kaleb said, ribs healing, tablet humming, MIT his. We're starting, Kiara corrected, medal shining, Spellman hers, ink flowing. Could they balance the scales, or would they tip into the dark? This gripping tale of Kaleb and Kiara Jackson reveals profound truths about resilience, systemic injustice, and the power of truth. First, it underscores that courage can thrive under crushing oppression. The twins faced relentless racial profiling, false arrests, planted evidence, and public smears. Yet their ingenuity, from Kaleb's hacks to Kiara's rallies, turned victimhood into victory. Their story teaches that fighting back, even when the odds stack high, can shift the narrative. Second, it exposes the deep roots of corruption, showing how figures like Judge Ramsey wield power to protect their own, manipulating laws meant to serve justice. The escalation from courtroom humiliation to a hit list proves that unchecked bias festers into violence, a lesson in vigilance against those who hide behind authority. Third, family emerges as an unbreakable anchor. Leonard's shift from judge to lawyer, risking his career, highlights sacrifice and solidarity as weapons against despair. Finally, the tale warns that triumph is never final. Ramsey's dying. Threat reminds us that evil adapts, demanding constant resistance. The twins' choice to hunt corruption rather than flee offers a blueprint. Face the storm, reshape it, and claim your future. Justice isn't handed out, it's forged. What's you? Resonates most with you? Drop a comment below if you think the twins' fight inspires real change, hit like if their grit moved you, and subscribe for more stories of defiance. Share this if you believe exposing corruption matters. Thanks for joining this journey. May you find strength to challenge your own battles and build a world where truth prevails.